took a seasonal job with the National Park Service last year, mostly trail maintenance and perimeter patrol, the kind of quiet work I had always wanted. After years of working in crowded cities, Yellowstone felt like another planet. The stillness, the smell of pine and sulfur, the constant hum of wind across untouched wilderness, it all felt sacred, like the land was older than time and wanted to be left alone. But there's a reason rangers don't talk much about certain parts of the park. And it's not because they're boring. One area in particular made me uneasy from the beginning. The eastern mountain range near Lamar Valley, past the marked trails and deep into restricted territory, was referred to by some of the veteran rangers as the Echoes. They joked about it at first, saying it was where voices went when they didn't want to be heard anymore. But I saw the way they avoided patrolling there. I asked once if anything strange had happened in that area, and an older guy named Brooks looked at me dead on and said, "Don't go up there unless you want to come back wrong." I thought it was just ranger folklore. Every job has its ghost stories. But that changed when we got a missing persons call on a chilly morning in late September. A couple from Colorado had vanished while hiking off trail near the Echo Ridge sector. According to their GPS ping, their last known location was just below a rock formation known as Split Tooth Cliffs, which hadn't been officially patrolled in over a year. We organized a search team and set out the same afternoon, and I volunteered to take the lead along the ridge because I wanted to prove myself. The first strange thing I noticed was the sudden silence. Yellowstone is never truly quiet. You always hear birds, wind, insects, distant movement. But as I hiked deeper into the range, everything stopped. No sounds, no wind. Even my radio started crackling, then went completely dead. I pushed on toward the cliffs, watching for tracks or debris, and that's when I heard it. A voice, faint but clear, calling, "Help us." It was a woman's voice, desperate but somehow distant, like it was coming from inside the mountain itself. I froze, then radioed the team again, but all I got was static. The voice came again. "Please, we're here." I climbed higher, calling out, identifying myself as park staff, but the only response was the same voice repeating the same words. Not slightly different, not new sentences. The exact same cadence, the exact same breath between syllables, as if it had been recorded and was playing on a loop. As I rounded a cluster of jagged rocks, I found a backpack. Inside were the couple's IDs, half a protein bar, and a phone with no battery. But there were no tracks, no signs of struggle. Just that bag sitting in the dirt as if it had been placed there on purpose. The voice came again. Closer this time, louder. "Help us." It was coming from above me now, echoing off the rocks in unnatural ways. I climbed higher, against my better judgment, until I reached a narrow path carved between two cliffs. The voice was louder than ever now, but as I turned the corner, it stopped. That's when I saw the cave. It was low and wide, hidden beneath an overhang of stone, and its mouth was darker than it should have been. Like it didn't just lack light, but rejected it entirely. I shined my flashlight inside and immediately felt dizzy. The beam only went a few feet before the darkness swallowed it. The air coming from inside was cold and thick, like breathing through wet wool. Then I heard it. Dozens of voices, all at once. Whispering, crying, some laughing, all speaking at the exact same volume, like 1,000 radios turned to low. And then, layered beneath them all, one clear voice. "Come in." I don't remember deciding to move. My body just started stepping forward, one foot after the other. But just before I reached the mouth of the cave, I saw something in the dirt. A pattern of boot prints going in, but none coming out. I dropped the flashlight. My instincts screamed to turn back, so I did. I ran, barely stopping to grab the couple's backpack, crashing through trees and brush until the static on my radio turned to voices again. When I reconnected with the team, I tried to explain what I'd heard, but no one believed me. Not fully. The official report said the couple was presumed dead after getting lost off trail. Their bodies were never found. But I know they're still out there. Or something that sounds like them is. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. Over the past year, hikers have reported hearing voices in the Echo Ridge area, always the same message. Help us. Even when no one is there. Some rangers believe the land holds on to sound, like a memory, but others believe the voices don't belong to the missing at all. They belong to the mountain. Sometimes, late at night, I replay the audio from my body cam. The footage cuts out near the cliffs, but the audio keeps going. And on that track, right before it goes silent, I hear my own voice calling out to someone. Only I have no memory of saying those words. Come in. I've hiked the Appalachian Mountains since I was a teenager. There's something about the trail that pulls you back. The stillness of the forest, the hum of life beneath the canopy, and the way time seems to slow down with each step. After losing my job last spring and needing to clear my head, I planned a solo week-long trip through a lesser-known section of the trail in western North Carolina. The locals called it the Ridgewell Loop, a 40-mile backwoods detour that barely shows up on official maps. I only found it because an old trail guide had penciled it in with a warning. Do not follow the shadows. I assumed it was poetic or just hiker superstition, but I should have listened. The trailhead was barely marked, just a bent wooden post with no name. The forest there felt different from the rest of the range, not darker exactly, but denser, heavier. By the second day, I realized I hadn't seen another soul. No other hikers, no wildlife, not even birdsong. Just the sound of my boots and the wind moving through the trees like breath. That night, as I set up camp on a ridge overlooking the valley, I saw movement across the slope. I thought it was a deer at first, or maybe another camper, but as I stared through the trees, I realized it was a person. Alone. Walking uphill. No flashlight, no gear. Just a silhouette moving steadily into the night. I shouted, but they didn't respond. I watched until they disappeared behind the trees, and then I sat in silence for what felt like an hour, waiting for some sound to tell me they were human. Nothing came. The next morning, I hiked in that direction, hoping to find signs of another camper. What I found instead was an old campsite that looked like it hadn't been touched in weeks. A tent collapsed and torn by wind. A backpack molded over and soaked. A pair of hiking boots still laced with no sign of who had worn them. It felt wrong, like the forest had paused here. I tried using my satellite phone, but it wouldn't connect, not even to GPS. I marked the spot on my map and kept going, telling myself I'd report it when I got back. That afternoon, I saw another figure. This one was ahead of me on the trail, maybe 100 yards up. Same thing. No gear, no reaction when I called out. And moving slowly as if walking uphill didn't tire them at all. I quickened my pace to catch up, but when I turned the bend, the path was empty. No tracks, no sound. Just silence and trees pressing in closer than they had before. By the fourth day, I stopped sleeping properly. Every night I'd hear footsteps circling my tent, never running, never stopping, just pacing. Every time I unzipped the flap and shined my light out, nothing was there. But the moment I sat back down, the steps would start again. I began hiking longer hours just to stay awake. My water ran low and I couldn't keep food down. I told myself I was dehydrated, hallucinating, exhausted. But then I saw 3 of them together. It was around dusk, just before the sky lost its color. I'd reached a clearing and sat down to catch my breath, and across the ridge I saw them. 3 silhouettes, evenly spaced, moving in the same direction. They didn't follow the trail. They didn't follow terrain. They just glided along the slope in a straight line, arms limp at their sides, heads slightly tilted down. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. They weren't people anymore. I'm not even sure they ever were. When I finally got the nerve to leave the clearing, I cut through brush and headed south, off the Ridgewell Loop entirely, trying to make it back to a ranger station I remembered passing 4 days earlier. I hiked through the night. I didn't stop. The forest was different now, rearranged. I'd passed the same crooked pine 3 times. My compass spun in slow circles. And behind me, always just out of sight, I heard the sound of leaves moving beneath soft steps. At sunrise, I found a wooden sign nailed to a tree that nearly made me cry. It said Shadow Trail. The letters were etched in deep and darkened with ash. I hadn't seen that name on any map. As I stood there staring, something passed behind me. Not close, but not far either. And I turned just in time to see a silhouette step behind a tree, even though there was no sun yet to cast it. I ran. I finally stumbled onto a gravel service road by late afternoon. A supply truck passed an hour later, and when I waved it down, the ranger inside looked stunned. He told me I'd come out of a section that had been officially closed since 1996, after 3 hikers disappeared in the same week. They found their gear, not their bodies. He said the strangest part was that other campers still reported seeing people walking that trail, but every time a ranger checked, there was no one there. Just empty woods. I got back to town 2 days later. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Those hollow walking shadows moving slowly through the trees, not searching, not hunting, just following a path they never left. I looked up the old cases. The photos were blurry and aged, but I recognized the shapes. The same slouched posture, the same build, the same number. It wasn't just hikers that disappeared out there. It was their shadows that stayed behind. I haven't gone back. I won't. Sometimes when I see distant tree lines or mountains in the fog, I imagine those things still walking step after step on a loop that never ends. And late at night, if I'm near the woods, I swear I hear the sound of boots on dirt, always moving uphill, always just out of view. I took a seasonal maintenance job last fall at a campground near Lake Superior on the Upper Peninsula. The kind of place where the wind always has weight to it and the sky feels a little too big. I had worked a dozen parks before that, but there was something about Superior that stuck to you. Not just the cold or the isolation, but the silence, the kind that felt like it was waiting for something to break it. The job was simple. Keep the grounds clean, repair storm damage, help clueless tourists not die in the woods. I didn't mind the quiet, especially after what I'd gone through in my life. But I wasn't ready for what that lake would show me. It started 3 days after I arrived, when a local search and rescue crew pulled a battered fishing boat from the shallows near a stretch of shoreline that was technically off limits to the public. No names on the hull, no paperwork, just an old aluminum skiff full of tangled netting, 2 unopened beers, and a waterproof tackle box with 3 fishing licenses inside. 3 names, 3 men, no blood, no signs of distress, just an empty boat drifting aimlessly until it scraped the sand. I heard about it through the camp manager, Stan, who tried to laugh it off like it happened all the time. But the way he tightened his jaw when he talked said otherwise. I asked if the men were found, and he just muttered something about the lake keeping what it wants. That night I walked the shoreline near the dock with a flashlight in one hand and a thermos in the other. The wind had picked up hard and the sky was moonless, so the lake was just a black sheet beyond the trees. As I stood there, I thought I heard voices. Faint. Carried by the wind, barely louder than the waves. I paused and listened again, and I swear I heard someone yell, "Hey!" like they were shouting across open water. I scanned the lake, expecting maybe drunk kids or night fishers, but the surface was empty. Then I heard a second voice, this one panicked, full of fear, shouting something I couldn't make out. And then a third, deeper, rasping like someone who'd been screaming for hours. The wind died all at once and the lake went still. Not calm. Still, like glass, like something was watching. I left the shoreline and didn't look back. The next morning, I told Stan what I'd heard. He gave me a long look, then poured himself coffee and said, "Every few years it happens. Some guys vanish, their boat washes back up, and for a while the lake talks. Locals call it the calling season." I asked if that was some kind of superstition, and he just nodded toward the lake and said, "You'll see." Over the next week, the screams came back every night. I didn't imagine them. Other campers reported it too. One guy packed up his whole family at 3 a.m. and left without even asking for a refund. Another claimed he saw someone waving from the water and nearly dove in before realizing no one was there. One night I left my cabin and walked back toward the shore, armed with my flashlight, phone, and a knife I didn't know how to use. I wanted to prove it to myself, or maybe disprove it. As I approached the same stretch of beach, the voices came again, louder this time, desperate. They didn't echo like sound should. They vibrated in the bones. I heard one of them shout, "Get back to the boat," and another scream, "It's under us." The moment I reached the edge of the sand, the wind stopped again. The trees behind me stilled. Everything held its breath. And then I saw it. Out on the water, maybe 30 yards offshore, a dim blue light flickered beneath the surface. Not on it, under it, moving slowly like something alive. As I watched, the light rose, and just for a second I saw faces. 3 of them, pale, wet, eyes open and staring straight at me, mouths still moving in silent screams. Then the light vanished, and the lake swallowed them whole. I ran. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I tried to find the names on the fishing licenses. The local sheriff refused to give me anything, but I managed to overhear someone mention the last name, Hayes. I searched old newspapers online, and there it was, a short article from 3 years ago about 3 local men who took a boat out from the same shoreline and never came back. No storm, no wreckage, just gone. I found their photos, and I recognized the faces. They hadn't drowned. Or maybe they had, but the lake hadn't let them rest. I don't know what Lake Superior is. Not exactly. I know it's deep, older than almost anything, and it holds more secrets than people care to admit. I know ships sink here and leave no trace. I know sonar sometimes picks up shapes that don't match anything natural. And I know that when the wind dies and the voices rise, something is looking back. I quit the job 2 weeks early. I couldn't take it anymore. The last night I was there, the screaming started before the sun had even set, louder than I'd ever heard it. It sounded like 100 voices overlapping, begging, pleading, calling for help from a place just below the surface. I slammed the door to my cabin shut, but the walls didn't block it out. Nothing could. Back in the city, I can still hear them when I dream. And sometimes when I sit in silence, I catch a sound just at the edge of hearing. Waves, wind, and a voice calling, "Over here." I've told people. They think I'm just haunted by what I saw. But I know better. Those men never left the lake. And now they're not alone.